Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Educator Promotion webinar today. Again, sorry for the confusion on the webinar room number, but it looks like everyone has at least have moved over and very quickly to the new room. This is, in summary, a journey of sustained excellence that we all have the opportunity to develop for ourselves and to share with our colleagues as we journey through the academic promotion process. And so today we're going to look at exactly what this process is and how you go about navigating it. And for beginners, let's just start with a few objectives for today. One is to improve the clarity and understanding of the process, timeline, and the resources available for those in the promotion process. And this will also be valuable. I see a few members of district and other promotion committees online, so that's awesome. These are individuals who have a lot of experience serving on promotion committees, so I'd like you to chime in today as appropriate as well. We want to improve the quality of our promotion files that are submitted. There is so much awesome, great work that happens throughout Nebraska Extension and in each of your individual situations that we want to make sure that you do the very best in putting your best foot forward and communicating that to the promotion committee and your unit administrators. And then finally, just answer questions you might have regarding the promotion process and expectations. Now, one thing that isn't necessarily consistent across the state is how each and every district and the state educator promotion committee work. And so I'll just acknowledge it up front and probably acknowledge that throughout the webinar. So my disclaimer today is that I'd like you to check with your respective promotion committee regarding any details, or when I indicate that this may vary from one promotion committee to another, be sure you check in with your local promotion committee to make sure you're on track with the way they do business in this regard. One of the things that I'll be working on over the course of this calendar year is to bring more consistency and unity to our promotion committees so that everything pretty much looks similar from district to district to the state promotion committee in the way we look at and evaluate these files. So today's agenda is about what is academic promotion. If you're very new to Nebraska Extension, that may be a big question on your mind. And I've actually heard this when mentoring and working with brand new educators. Well, why would I want to do that? What is this promotion thing? Number two is, why is it important? Why is this important to your role and perhaps your career? And finally, and this is something I think a lot of you are very interested in knowing, is how do I develop the very best promotion file for myself? So the question I'll pose to begin with is what is academic promotion? And I'd like to see a few responses in the chat. As you think about academic promotion for educators, what is that? Any thoughts? What is academic promotion? How would you define this? If you're an educator who's been with us for a while and you were asked this question by a new hire educator, how would you define it? What is it? So Ron says recognition of good work over a period of time. I love that definition, Ron. Jenny says this is an opportunity to move forward, reach new levels of competency in your job. Excellent. That fits very well as well. Wayne indicates this is a demonstration of your capacity to perform and excel in your position over time. Very cool. Love these. Jay Jenkins, an opportunity to show growth in your career. Plus, let's be honest, it's the only way to get a significant raise. Okay. We'll talk about that too, Jay. Thanks. Todd Whitney, a classification process for extension development. Oh, that's never thought of it that way, but a classification process of working at different levels within the organization. All right. Hey, thank you so much. Those are all awesome. They're right on target. I really don't even need to do this next slide, but you've defined it very well. It's evidence of intentional extension, meaning that we're a very goal-oriented organization. So you set goals and you work towards those goals. So at the end of the day, you have accomplishments, you have impacts, you have verification of behavior change. And so the academic promotion process, it is that journey from one level of work to another, and really saying that, hey, this is what I'm setting out to do based upon my position description, and look here, I accomplished that. And this is how I did it. It demonstrates that record of accomplishment that someone mentioned earlier. So it's that excellence over time, that good work over time. And it's a visible way to recognize performance. So you have your individual faculty performance evaluation conferences with your respective unit administrators every year. And that's a one-on-one, that's a confidential individual conversation. But this is something that's very public. So when you're promoted, we make a big deal out of it. Your title changes, and you have an opportunity to participate in a big celebration at the end of the process, which I'll describe a little bit later. And it's also a vote of confidence. It's a vote of confidence from your unit administrator and from your local promotion committee. If you want to see exactly how it's officially described, what is academic promotion, there's a link at the bottom of this slide. And by the way, I'll be sending out this slide deck with the recording of this webinar, so know that's coming your way. But this link at the bottom of this slide would lead you to a part of Board of Regents policy that describes the process in a more official capacity. If you were to look at some of the IANR documents regarding criteria for appointment, promotion, and rank, this is exactly verbatim what those documents would say when you look in the segment called criteria for appointment and promotion. So this would be if you're an assistant extension educator and you're interested in applying for associate extension educator rank, these are the qualifications. This is what the committee in general would be looking for. Note this one says the first bullet is all qualifications of lower rank. So to come in as an assistant extension educator, the criteria there are basically you have a master's degree, you have the expertise, the skill set to serve as a Nebraska extension educator. That's the baseline, and then we grow the definition from there. If you're looking at moving from associate to full educator rank, again, all qualifications of lower rank and ranks, actually, that should say. And then these are some other criteria that lead to that decision as to whether you're promoted to that rank or not. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each of these because I'm going to go into a lot more detail later on in this presentation. Note that at the bottom bullet here indicates that normally a minimum of 7 years in the associate rank before you move on to full rank. And I'll back up for 1 second. And from assistant to associate, it says time in rank is ordinarily at least 5 years and typically 6. These criteria are dated just a bit, and in fact, there really is no hard and fast rule as to the number of years that you are required to be in rank before you are granted promotion. It's more the judgment of the unit administrator and the promotion committee. Just realize that, I think Ron or someone mentioned earlier, this is about demonstrating excellence over time. So let's say you come into Nebraska Extension and you do just a tremendous job in the first 2 years, and you think, oh, I can go for promotion. I've done a wonderful job the last 2 years. Well, that's probably not sustained long enough to prove to your peers and unit administrator that you might move up to the next rank. So why is promotion important? Another question. I'm looking forward to your responses in the chat. And Jenny makes a nice comment here. She said, we're looking at whether the person is performing at the next level regardless of time in the position. And that's very true, Jenny, because when you move from, let's say, from assistant to associate rank, when you're promoted to associate rank, you should already be working at that level, right? I mean, you've exemplified that, you've demonstrated that, you've documented the fact that I'm already working at this level, so I'm deserving of this rank. So why is promotion important? I'd like a few comments. So this could be from those who have been promoted already or from those who are aspiring to be promoted. Why is this important? Everyone's thinking about it. Ron says, gain an understanding of expectations of a position in a point in time of career. Karna says, validates that efforts we put into our work are recognized. Very, very good. Jenny says, Jay is right. The only way to get a pay raise, but also is an ability to relate to peers in a different manner. You have proven yourself. You also have opportunities to serve on committees, like promotion committees, once you move up the promotion ranks as well. John Westra, nice comment, recognition of the great work you were doing in your position. Absolutely, that's really the one I would gravitate to above all. Todd says, perhaps it would help you retain your position during rough budget times. I would say that probably wouldn't be as much the case in Nebraska, because we're always looking at performance, on an ongoing basis. So I'm not sure we would necessarily look at, that might be true in other states, but Nebraska, the rank wouldn't necessarily come into play there. Boy, your comments are coming in fast and furious here. I'm going to have to make sure I catch up here. Megan says, it keeps you sharp, it challenges you, something to work towards, keeps you current in your job with extension. Love that, Megan. Always reaching for the stars and aspiring to do better. Amy Timmerman, recognition that we're doing a good job. And that's an important point. We all want to know that we're on track, right? We're on the right path, right journey, doing the right things. And this is verification of that, absolutely. Linda Reddish mentions, demonstrates a willingness and openness to change, brings about new ideas or educational programs to your organization, because right, we're all trying to get better and to show that we're great at what we do in our respective roles, and it does reflect on the organization, your districts, your departments, so it's a verification of that as well. Jay said it gives us goals to aim for, keeps us from stagnating. Katie Krause noted, a question about process. Katie asked if you click on the Everyone button right above where you type, everyone can see your comments. So you can certainly do that rather than just sending them to me if you like. Linda said, Reddish says, demonstrates a willingness and openness to change. Bring about new ideas for educational programs to your organization. And lots of ideas here. So Strahina says, I guess if you are not promoted, that means you did not show progress in your position. And maybe that is an outward sign to look for a job that better aligns with your talents and personality. Well, that might be the case, Strahina. If you're having difficulty over a long period of time, I would say, in becoming promoted, that might just be the case. But I would not say that's the case if you went up for promotion and maybe didn't work out the first time or even second time. I'd keep pitching, because there are probably just a handful of things, or maybe one or two things that you need to improve in your file to move forward. So, hey, these are wonderful. Thank you so much for contributing those. Those are very good food for thought. And they really align with some of the points up on the screen now. It's that recognition of achievement. And to me, it's affirmation that you're on the right track. It's organizational achievements, it's your scholarly work, but it's also personal growth. And I really encourage you to look at it this way. It's personal growth in what you do, and I think in almost all cases, it's what you love to do. Someone mentioned this earlier, it's a career milestone. So you would notice on campus with specialists and researchers and teaching faculty that they typically use their academic titles. So they might say, I'm an associate professor in the Department of Biological Systems Engineering. And you'll notice that we really do not use the academic titles in extension work. Our working title for all educators is Extension Educator. So that doesn't mean that there are multiple ranks of educators throughout our system. We just do not typically use the academic titles in our work. But our promotion process does parallel the tenure line faculty recognition process very closely, except we just do not have the tenure component. And that's why many times we talk about extension educators being faculty equivalent. Well, this is one example of where and why that is true. Why is it important? It's also about peer and administrative recognition. And then there are rewards associated with it. So currently, when you're promoted from assistant to associate extension educator, I believe the promotion increase is $4,200. And from associate to full educator is $6,400. And if you were to look at different groups of faculty across campus, it might be tenure line, professors of practice, others, and this is all in the Board of Regents policy. Those stipends vary depending on which group of faculty you're in. In some cases, it's a percentage versus a stipend, a certain amount. So just know that varies just a little bit from group to group. But it's certainly a nice bump and reward for moving on to the next rank. So how to develop your promotion file? So that's a big question and something that I'm sure you are all interested in today. Interested in your ideas. We've got several online here who have went through this process once or twice. So perhaps share a few thoughts and some guidance on with your colleagues as to what you should be thinking about as you start this process. Funny, Wayne, funny. So Wayne says, copy the style of someone who's successful, who copied off of Dave Varner. Very funny, very funny. There's a lot of great files out there to pattern your work after, there's no doubt. Kim Barnes says, it's always great to get a sample from another person who's gone through the process. Kim, that is amazing advice, and that maybe is the first thing you should do is, what does a promotion file look like? Take a look at one. There's no better way to describe it. Jenny says the statewide promotion committee put together a wonderful guide, and it's online for all to reference. And I'll be mentioning that here later, Jenny. Thank you. Katie Picard says, have someone who has been through the process or on the committee in the past be a reviewer, not just at the end, but maybe midway too. Excellent advice, Katie. I strongly underscore that advice. Alice says, ask for ideas for those who have been promoted, plus have a couple of people proof it for you after you have typed it. Probably one of the things that isn't done often enough, but is a huge advantage as you go through the process. Ron mentions, compile a document that effectively demonstrates the good work and impact of that work. So absolutely agree. And Jenny says, start early. You should be working on it for more than a year. I agree. I agree completely. So you don't want to start on it necessarily the year that you're going up. So here's what the plan is for the remaining of our time today. We'll walk through the promotion file process. We'll talk about the content. We'll offer some advice, as you already have, in how you plan for success in this process. And also I'll talk about some promotion pitfalls. And these are just things that I've noticed throughout my extension career and experienced, and so I'll share those with you. And then finally, some of the resources that have already been mentioned and that you may not be aware of that are online and otherwise for you to use as needed. So process and then expectations is the way I have the next group of slides organized. And we'll start with the process. And as you have questions, go ahead and post those in the chat button, chat section, and I'll keep my eye on that window. So today, if you look across the state, we have 5 promotion committees, educator promotion committees. So 1 in Panhandle, 1 West Central, Northeast, and then currently, because the Metro and the Old Southeast just recently divided into different districts, they still are working under one educator promotion district that includes representatives from both districts. And so that's a question that in the NREC, the Eastern Nebraska Research and Extension Group, is wrestling with as to whether they want to keep their promotion committees for educators separate by district or whether they want to combine into a larger NREC committee. And so that discussion is just on the brink of happening, so more to come there. And then there's the most unique of the promotion committees, and that is the statewide / campus-based educator committee. And that is one that's probably outgrown the current model, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. We'll kick that around. I won't spend a lot of time specifically to that committee and how that process works, simply because I've spent a couple hours twice in the last 2 weeks with campus-based statewide educators talking through that process and sharing really the slides I'm sharing in today's webinar already. So we're having that conversation with those educators specifically because they're in such a unique position. So if you look at the statewide campus-based committee, just so all of you know how that works, it's populated by educators who have attained the rank of full educator. And it currently includes the current district promotion committee chair from each of the 4 districts I just showed, 4 to 5 districts I just shared. And then one of the district promotion committee chairs from the previous year holds over for another year and serves as the committee chair in their 2nd year of service with that committee. And then there is currently 1 campus-based educator on that committee. And you might ask, well, why only 1 campus-based educator on that committee? Well, currently there's only there's a very minimal number of fully promoted campus-based statewide educators because that's a relatively new role in our system and position. And there's only 1 of those fully promoted educators that's been willing to serve in this capacity. So we'd like to, one of our goals is to bring more campus-based educators onto this committee as time goes on. At the district level, you'll find that most of the district committees are guided by a document called Operating Principles, not in all cases, but most. And this outlines how the representation on the committee happens, which counties, which program areas. We look at gender balance, a number of things to make sure we have a very balanced committee in that respect. It's populated by educators who have attained full educator rank. And some units require that you have to have a certain performance level before you can serve on the committee. So those are just, and there might be some others with some committees requirements, but this is kind of a baseline of requirements to serve on promotion committees. You know, one of the things that I see that may be changing on these committees in the near future is that just as some departments do now on campus, associate educators may be invited to serve on these committees as well. And in that case, the associate rank educators could actually vote and discuss on applications from assistant to associate rank. And the full rank educators would actually be the ones who would vote on promotion from associate to full educator rank. And why would we do that at this point? Well, simply because of the huge turnover we've had in our organization recently, and the fact that in some cases we are really struggling to find enough fully promoted educators to serve on these committees. So we might be looking at a little different model in the future, but that is a question and a discussion that will happen with the respective promotion committees. So one of the most frequent questions from those new to the process is, as they look at the definitions through the border regions and the IANR guidelines for promotion, the word unit administrator is used often. So they ask, well, who is that? Who is my unit administrator? And it depends. So in most cases, it's either your research and extension director or it's your associate research and extension director. If you're on campus, it's a department head or unit head. And we even have examples of educators who are officed in counties who are co-supervised by a department head and an extension program leader. So those are the 4 possibilities of individuals who might be defined as your unit administrator. So let's look at the timeline. And this, I think most of the committees, the units, are generally in agreement with this. This is something else we're going to work on, making sure we're consistent with statewide. But May-ish is typically when you would notify your unit administrator and your promotion committee of intent to apply for promotion. So that is a simple email or note to those entities indicating that I'm considering applying for promotion. Now, maybe you want to have a discussion with the committee, a committee member or your administrator, as to whether you think you're ready or whether your file is strong enough at this point to proceed. But know that this is your decision. So you decide as the faculty member whether you want to pursue promotion at this point. And the reason you want to notify the committee and your administrator is so that they can help you through this process. So May through August, even though that's summer and that's a very busy time for much of our system, this is when you want to be working on that file with a mentor, with a committee member, with a unit administrator, someone who you trust, that has some experience in this arena, who has been successful in the system, and that you really admire and have trust in the fact that they will guide you in the right way. When it comes to the September, early fall time period, that would be a good time to have a strong draft of your file to share with. You can share with your unit administrator and ask for their input, see what they think at that point. Could be a member of the promotion committee. It might be your mentor. It would be someone that you feel would give you a strong critique and positive, constructive critique of your file at that point. And what you're really looking for at that point are there large gaps? Am I missing something? Is there something obvious that I need to add to my file or change at this point? It's important for that to all happen at that point, because over the course of the next couple of months or so, you have the opportunity, and this is that opportunity that unfortunately doesn't happen often enough, and that is that I would ask at least 3, and I'll say qualified educators, to review the file and offer suggestions. So these are individuals who are doing very well in extension, who have perhaps served on the promotion committee, or maybe they're currently on the promotion committee. You have look over your file, and this is not just looking at grammar, punctuation, format, but it's a hard look at the content. So do I see appropriate accomplishments, impacts, verified behavior change, scholarly work? We'll talk more about what we're looking for here in a moment, but have them take a deep dive on your file and look at it and give you strong advice. In March, well, that's strange. That's not in order, is it? So let me jump here. So in December 1st, and this varies a little bit from district to district, I believe, but this is a good target date to have your file submitted to your unit administrator and to your promotion committee. And I know that this is varied over time. Now, one misnomer is that these files are due in September. Well, that's because in many departments, tenure line files are due in September at the R&E districts and also on campus. But really, the educator files are not due until this time of year. And some districts have pushed that back to January 1, but I'll be working with all the promotion committees to see if we can come up with a common date, and I'm thinking that might be December 1st to have the files submitted. That allows your unit administrator and promotion committee to look at your file over the course of the next couple of months and to decide whether they feel like it's strong enough to move forward or not. In January is when both your unit administrator and your promotion committee notify the candidate of their status. So this is in the form of a recommendation as to whether the file should move forward or not. Those recommendations are shared with the extension dean, who also reviews the files and notifies candidates of their status. And then back up to the March here on this slide. So next, the INR Vice Chancellor reviews the file. Again, another independent recommendation, and then makes a recommendation up to the Chancellor, ultimately goes up to the Board of Regents. If all is good, and you will know all is good when you receive a letter from the ANR Vice Chancellor indicating that you have successfully navigated the promotion process. And that notification will typically come in maybe late March, early April, and you'll be notified of the UNL campus-wide celebration of promotion and tenure, which typically happens at the Quilt Center right here near East Campus. And then the promotions actually takes effect on July 1st. So to summarize that process, This chart just kind of brings it in a succinct fashion, describes it. So your promotion committee may recommend that the file goes forward, or may not. They may not want it to go forward. That's their opinion. The unit administrator independently reviews the file. They have their own independent recommendation. Regardless of whether those are both yeses or both nos, or they're conflicting, they're different, both those recommendations go to the extension dean. And then the extension dean takes that information into context, and also reviews the file and makes a recommendation as to whether that promotion moves forward or not. Now, I would note that if the promotion committee and the unit administrator both recommend that the file not move forward, many times at that point, either the committee or administrator will just visit with the candidate and ask you if you still want your file to go forward or not. And that's just a courtesy question, an option for you at that point to withdraw your file that year, or if you feel it's strong enough and it should go forward, that's absolutely can happen as well. But I just want you to know that's a courtesy that's often extended to a file that has 2 no votes as it goes to the dean. You'll see the rest of the process on this slide, but once the extension dean makes a decision, that's communicated to the IANR dean. So we all have 100% extension appointments. So the extension dean is the lead dean. And at that point, if the extension dean recommends that the file does not go forward, it stops at that point. If you are a specialist or in rare circumstance, an educator that has an extension appointment and another minor teaching or research appointment, then the INR Dean's Committee may come into play as well. All right, I'm going to look at the questions here. So Jenny says, yeah, contact your local promotion committee for early help and advice. Karn is asking, can you tell us who the promotion committee chair is in each district so we know who to send our email to? Great question, Karna. I'll make a note to find out that information for you, as well as for the statewide committee as well. Jenny asked, if the promotion file is due December 1, must the current year activity insight be completed by December 1 also? I see some leeway in allowing educators to complete their activity insight and update their promotion file with current AI when the committee actually meets. So that's a great question, Jenny. So to tell you the truth, it's probably cleanest if you would submit your activity insight with your promotion file on December 1st and just do a projection for anything that might happen in December. I do know that, and that's because these files are submitted electronically, and to repackage that with the updated activity insight sometimes is a little bit of a challenge. I do know a lot of districts allow that allow you to insert a preliminary activity insight, and then they will actually update the file with the activity insight that you submit on January 15th or so when they're due. And that's, again, a district decision at this point. And that's handled differently in some departments on campus. But that's something I need to dive into and see if we can bring some consistency to how that's communicated, Jenny. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So Randy Pryor is a chair of the Southeast Metro District Committee. There we go. I think we're all good on the questions. So there is a reconsideration and appeal process. So if you feel like you did not receive a fair look from your committee or unit administrator, this is your committee primarily, you can ask for reconsideration, and you have 2 days from the point at which the committee decides and gives you a recommendation. You have 2 days to respond to that recommendation, ask for reconsideration. You have then 5 days to put together your justification and for reconsideration or appeal, and present it either orally, in writing, or both. And then the group or individual who that appeal or reconsideration has been forwarded to has another 5 days to reconsider your file. So there's an official process. I've really just summarized it here very succinctly, but this is all spelled out in the IANR promotion guidelines. And I just want you to know that this is a part of the process, and you should be aware of this so that if you feel like you're not being treated fairly in the promotion process, that there is in fact an option to ask groups who have looked at your file to reconsider it or to appeal up the line through the administrative channels. So I'm going to stop there for just a second and see if there are any specific questions to anything we've covered regarding process. All right, I'm going to move on to expectations. So as you look at the promotion file, and this goes back to what does a file really look like? There's nothing like saying one. These are the components of the file, and this is pretty uniform across the districts. It should be. The one piece that may not always be uniform are two pieces. One is if you look down to the second bullet from the bottom, it talks about university service, professional service, community engagement. In some cases, the committee may just accept a CV in lieu of that section because the CV includes all of that and much, much more. In some districts, they like to have a section that just focuses on the service and engagement, and then you submit your CV as a separate component in addition to the promotion file. And then the piece that is not listed here, and you will not see it identified in a lot of the recent promotion guidelines, is a section for exhibits or samples of your work. Let's say NEB guides, work you may be doing online, curriculum and such. And that is a section that, quite frankly, has never served as a portion of the file that makes a strong impression on the committee, those samples of your work. And today, actually, you have so much more opportunity to do that since the files are filed electronically. If you think about it, you can actually include samples of your blogs, your Facebook, your curriculum, your publications. All of that can be connected electronically to your file through links. So as a committee and your administrators looking at your file, I'd encourage you to use hot links in that document to link them to your work. And what better opportunity than for someone to be able, that person or committee to be able to look at your videos live or your blog live or your website live rather than just a snapshot or a photo of what it might look like. So let's go through each one of these sections in just a little bit more detail. So the general information is basically, it's kind of a cover sheet. It's your name, your unit, which would be your department, your district, such, date, and what rank you are applying for, and then a table of contents. The transmittal letter, think of it in terms of a cover letter. So address it to your unit administrator, and what you're indicating is your intent to apply for academic promotion to associate or full educator rank. And then I would take the opportunity in this letter, just like you would in a cover letter if you're applying for a position, to lift up some of your key strengths, what you really want your unit administrator and promotion committee to know about your work since being hired or since your last promotion. And so this might be explaining those 2 or 3 big buckets or areas of programming that you're going to talk about later in the file. And then explain out any unique circumstances. So have you changed positions en route since your last promotion? Or, what is there some unique circumstance that you want the committee and your administrator to know about going forward? And don't take those type of things for granted. Obviously, we have unit administrators changing. The promotion committee changes over time. Those individuals are not all from your program area. They don't all know you or know your unique circumstances. So take this opportunity to call out those uniquenesses if it applies. And I'd also encourage you to keep it to just about 1 page and not much more. It really sets the stage for the committee and the administrator to look at your file. Position descriptions, make sure you have your most current position description in place and that it is accurate. And to make sure it's signed by you, by your unit administrator, and by the Dean of Extension. Make sure you have a signed copy in place. If you've moved positions in the course of the time period in which you're working on promotion, make sure you have each of those position descriptions in place in your file so that those reviewing it can look at what you were charged to do with each of those position descriptions along the way. And then finally, this is something new that we're going to try this year, and that is for those campus-based statewide educator positions. We're going to ask those individuals to submit a one-page summary that they attach to their position description that further describes their specific roles and assignments, because there are so many one-of-a-kind, very unique educator roles on campus and in statewide positions that we feel like we need that information to do a better job of reviewing those particular files. Section 3 is that activity insight, which really is your annual report of faculty accomplishments. Include your current year report. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll talk about this some more. So hold on this decision, but whether we'll require that December 1 or whether we will allow an updated version to be inserted into your file about mid-January. As I mentioned, some units currently do that. So the other thing about your activity insight, again, make sure it's strong. This is like the culmination of your promotion journey to whatever rank you're aspiring to. So make sure it is strong, it's clear and concise. It's like finishing strong at the finish line. Don't take it for granted that the committee is just going to look at your summary of accomplishments and judge everything based upon that. They're also going to take a peek at this activity insight to see where you ended, where are you at today. And then, of course, annual faculty performance evaluations include the 4 most recent documents. Again, make sure they're signed copies by you and your administrator. And then the 5th document will be added to your file going forward, because typically that's not completed until after January 15th. And then we arrive at the most important part of the file, no question, the summary of accomplishments. And this is where you have the opportunity to describe in aggregate the summary, the body of your work over the last 5 to 7 years or so. And I would encourage you to begin this section with one page that offers an overview, sort of an abstract of this entire section content. So what are the big 2 or 3 issue or program areas that I'm going to talk about? How is it organized? Help the reader know what they're looking for and how they can navigate this section. This section varies in length, but I've seen them anywhere from maybe 8 to 15 pages, somewhere in that arena. Not solid text, but graphs, maybe a few program photos, charts, things like that. Some narratives, some bullet points. The most important thing is make sure it's very readable, very effective in communicating your message to those reviewing your file. And again, group it into 2 to 3 major program areas, buckets, programs. So this is very unique to each individual. If you're a CVI educator, it could be the example on the screen now. If you're in 4-H, it might be STEM, Ag Literacy, careers, volunteer development. It just depends on your program and what's really top of mind and most important in your situation. I'd encourage you to look at several other promotion files out there to see how others have chosen to package this particular section. That will be very helpful in helping you decide what that looks like for you. Remember, this is not reporting everything you've done in the last 5 to 7 years. It's not about that. It's about lifting up the most important, impactful things you've done and contributed to your clientele and to Nebraska Extension over the course of the last few years. So obviously this section, and maybe it should be titled this, it should be a summary of accomplishments, impacts, and verification of behavior change. And I think you'll find that your administrator and committee, if there's one thing they're looking for more throughout this file than anything else, it's our impacts and verification of behavior change. Do you have at least a couple of examples of a deep dive evaluation where you have verified behavior change? Has evaluation and impact been just the nature of your program over time? At the same time, you want to demonstrate the breadth and depth of your programming. So talk about that more here in a moment, but it should be sort of a wraparound approach to your programming. So not just a meeting approach, not just a blog approach, not just a once-a-year conference approach, but how are you really doing your work year-round to engage your specific audiences? So capturing the essence of your work. Again, I'm going to go back to, I think Ron Seymour said this earlier, it's about sustained excellence over time with this positive trajectory. Because note, you're moving from an assistant to an associate rank or associate to full rank. So there needs to be some trajectory here, right? You're not working at the same level throughout that journey. It should be getting better and better. Just a few more points to consider as you work in this summary of accomplishments section. This demonstrating initiative and leadership is really important. So those reviewing the file are also looking at your role. So what have you contributed? So you wouldn't want to include a lot of issue team program accomplishments, impact, all that type of thing, and never note how you contributed to that. So unless you've contributed to it, it probably shouldn't even be in the promotion file. This is really about you and what you've contributed to your program area over time. It should also exemplify innovation, entrepreneurship. So how are you doing extension differently? Creative ideas, different approaches. Very important to show that forward-looking, forward-acting approach in your program area. Demonstrating support for your programs. For specialists, this would really be focused on grants, and many times it's defined as only grants, but for educators, it's multifaceted. It's user fees, it's scholarships, not scholarships, sponsorships. It's other ways of funding your program in an entrepreneurial way to make them the best that they can possibly be. Partnerships, collaborative work, obviously very, very important, and you should share that, talk about that, how you've forged partnerships, been a part of a collaborative effort. Perhaps you've led one or both of these, which would be even better. Excellence in scholarship really varies by the program area, but again, it's think about how your work is recognized. So it could be awards, it could be peer review, it might be published work, but in what way can you prove or document that your work is highly regarded by peers and clientele? One way to do that would be bullet number 3 here, where you're recognized at the regional or national level. When I say recognized, that doesn't necessarily mean you receive an award. That means that you're invited or you're given an opportunity to present your work at a regional or national level. So maybe for going for associate rank, we'd be looking more at the regional opportunities and level, and at the full educator rank, being known at the national level for what you do. And one way I look at that is, this is the way of demonstrating that you're contributing to the conversation. You're not going to the conference just to learn, bring back information and extension methods to our state, but you're contributing to that national conversation. And then don't forget about the partnerships and connections with specialists. Our work is to be the translational component of the university system, taking the discovery to the people, and specialists are a huge part of that opportunity that we all want to be being a part of. Some other things to consider. So we've just launched issue teams in the last couple of years. So what have your contributions been to issue teams and interest groups that you're working with? So that's not going to be a lot of your file if you're going up this year because it's relatively new. But I would certainly have something in there relative to this area because it's something we're spending a lot of time and attention on right now. I already mentioned calling out your role and contributions to programs and teams. How do you demonstrate that, again, this credibility, that your program competency, that people come to you because you're the best at whatever you do, or they read your materials, or they go to your blog site. They view you as an expert. And if you can demonstrate that your clientele and or your peers are both doing that, that's a very strong statement. And then obviously examples of serving underserved audiences. How can you exemplify the fact that diversity and inclusion are an important part of your process and your programming arena? I'll end with this piece as far as suggestions here, and that is, we talk a lot about next generation extension. And next generation extension is not about the subject matter area, program area, it's about how you do business. And to me, this changes every day. So the way we're doing extensions should be different than the way we did it yesterday or last week or last year. So new delivery methods, unique partnerships, new partnerships, this whole on-farm translational action research arena. Are you doing that? Are you contributing to that in any way? Measuring program impact, behavior change, just not doing evaluations pre and post, but are you checking back 3, 6, 9 months later with your clientele to verify the fact that they have acted on their intent to change behavior based upon the work you have done? And then, of course, new external funding is always a plus as well. So as you look at each of those 2 or 3 big issue or program areas in your summary of accomplishments, I would just suggest you think about some common way of outlining or formatting each of those sections so it's easy for the reviewers to follow. So these are some suggestions, starting out from step 1, maybe the situation, the problem, the issue, leading all the way to the impacts and outcomes and verification of behavior change. This will look a little different from file to file, but something to think about. How do you organize the file so it makes sense to the reviewers? And then I would offer up too that this, the program pyramid, to me has always been a very useful tool to use in looking over a promotion file to see if it's ready, if it's strong enough, if it's comprehensive enough to go forward. So this is where, as we're looking at different levels of programming and different levels of engagement. And a good exercise to go through with this is just start jotting down your programs in each of the slices of this pyramid to see where they fall. And for example, maybe they're all in the bottom 2 tiers and you have nothing in the upper 3 tiers. That might stand out to a promotion committee that your work hasn't reached that level of engagement. Or maybe everything's in the top 2 tiers and nothing in the bottom. So you're just working with a very thin slice of your potential clientele, but you're not reaching the masses in any way. So think about this and how this relates to your program area and how you could have this discussion with someone who you're going to rely on as a mentor to help you through the promotion process. So the section 6, again, this is that university service, professional service, and community engagement section. And that, I think, is all self-explanatory. This is the place where I suggested maybe we want to think about including a CV, or at least include your CV with your file. Because to me, including the CV with your file is a nice reiteration of all of your work in so many ways. It talks about your scholarly work, your professional development, your presence at the regional and national scene. I mean, it's just a nice academic record of your work. And to package that with your promotion file, to me, will make a lot of sense. This is something I want to visit with all the promotion committees about to see exactly how we want to handle this, whether it's an addition or whether it's actually this section 6, but be thinking about that CV and how you prepare that to accompany your file. And then the last section really is just an open section. This is a section that you don't have to do anything with. As your unit administrator and your promotion committee and the dean of extension write their recommendation letters, they will all go in section 7. So this will be populated as your file moves through the evaluation process. One point of clarity is that a few years ago, external letters of recommendation were required from out-of-state colleagues for educator files. I think you're required to have at least 3 external out-of-state recommendation letters from colleagues you've worked with across the nation who know a little bit about your work, who reviewed your file and gave some feedback to the committee on that. That is no longer required for educators. It is still in place for tenure-line faculty, but it is not a requirement for extension educators. So if you see that requirement in some of the old documentation online or otherwise, know that it does not apply. All right, I'm going to hold there for a moment to see there might be specific questions. Wayne says, the AI system, Activity Insight system, is capable of generating a CV for you as long as you have everything entered from your prior work. Yep, and I agree. That's an option of the Activity Insight system. My take on that, though, I would encourage you, if you're going to do your CV, maybe just go and develop that in Word or another format where you have a little more control over how that looks and how that is presented. I think Wayne makes the point, if you happen not to fill out your activity insight in a way that populates that CV well, sometimes those CVs aren't presented very well, or they're missing important components. So, but that is an option. All right, I'm going to move on to planning for success. So I think Jenny Nixon said it earlier. Begin early. At one time, I had begin 2 to 3 years early, and now I changed that to begin early. And that means the day you're hired, the day you're promoted to associate, start working towards your promotion to full educator promotion. You cannot begin too early. Even if it's just populating an electronic file, a hard copy file of information relevant to promotion that you're going to be looking for in a few years, and you'll be wishing you had kept it in a place where it was easy to find. Think about those big goals in your program area early on. I mean, these are large goals. These could be issue team outcomes, what you're working towards, and then think about how you're going to get there. Think about the programs, the activities, the products that are going to allow you to get to those goals. This is the journey that you want to talk about in your promotion file. Make sure that there is some alignment with issue team outcomes in that process as well. And this is something I just would kind of keep front of mind as you work year to year. Post these goals on your bulletin board, on your desk, on your iPad. Say, this is what we're working towards. This is what I'm contributing. So you don't get distracted and start doing so many things for so many people and so many purposes that at the end of the day, you really don't have a lot of work that you can aggregate into 2 or 3 big program areas that would sell your promotion application to the group reviewing it. I'm looking at a couple comments here. Jay says, it's important that folks always be thinking about keeping records with an eye towards promotion. I agree, Jay. Just need to do that. And Kim Barnes says, break it into small sections so it's not overwhelming. So Kim, are you talking about the summary of accomplishments? If you want to clarify there, I think you are. And as you're clarifying there, I'll go on to other ideas as far as planning for success. Collect and document impact data along the journey. Don't want to wait till the last year to do that. You know, and sometimes you'll look at files and the files are just tremendous. I mean, the stage has been set. You've sold us on the situation, and the process has been good, and the programs and activities are outstanding. And we get to the impact and outcome section, and it's very minimal. It's kind of this buildup of expectation. Oh, this is going to be so cool, and then it's a bit of a letdown. Like, oh, there has to be more to this. And you know, I think in a lot of situations, probably most, there is so much more we could talk about as far as impact and outcomes. We just haven't taken the time to collect it, or maybe haven't taken the time to really describe it very well. I always encourage educators to think beyond the initial audience. So especially if you're working with a train-the-trainer audience, whether it be 4-H volunteers, with master gardeners, and others, think about what your ultimate reach is. So how many youth are your volunteers reaching? And how many folks, clientele, are your master gardeners reaching? What type of evaluation assessment could your master gardeners or your volunteers offer to you? You know, this whole area of program documentation does not have to be only quantitative and paper evaluations. It can be qualitative as well. So interviews with key informants, people who are really well networked in your program area, who are watching your programs, add a lot of credibility to your file if they talk about how on target your work is and how well it's contributing to the clientele at hand. So I really liked kind of a mixed methods approach to program evaluation where it's both qualitative and quantitative. There can be testimonials involved there as well. Just make sure it's a nice balance of support. And then the planning for success, and it's been said over and over in the last few minutes, but that's asking your peers and the unit administrator for guidance along the way, and be persistent in that, and ask multiple individuals for their take and guidance in this arena. So Jenny says, this is why it is so important to maintain focus throughout your career and throughout the year. It's easy to become busy and distracted. Keep your big goals in front of you and measure your activities, plans against that frequently. That was much better said than the way I just put it, Jenny. Thanks. And Kim's follow-up to break it into small sections comment is actually both. I would do one section per month, starting, and she's talking about the promotion file now. I would do one section per month starting early in the year and then add it as things come along. Accomplishments can be done year by year. Also breaking it up makes it easier. Concentrate on one area at a time and ask for other samples. So yeah, you can actually work on this. You really can work on this over years and even break it up in the year just leading up to promotion application to make it more manageable. Review samples of successful files. A lot of districts have received permission from recent successful promotions. They've asked those educators if they can share those files out. In some cases, they are in a hard copy form. In other cases, they're electronic form, but those are very, very, very helpful. Look at the guidance, the progress towards promotion form that you received during your annual evaluation conference with your unit administrator. There you have feedback from both the promotion committee and from your unit administrator, and an indicator of progress towards promotion, which is typically unsatisfactory, satisfactory, or I think it's extraordinary or excellent. So know that if it's satisfactory promotion, that's really good. That means you're on track. So that's where you want to be. More importantly, read what the comments are on that form. So what are the suggestions from the committee and your unit administrator? And I'd be looking at pulling both all that input together and looking for commonalities. Like typically it might say you need to focus on more large-scale, in-depth multi-year evaluation data, or you need to document the impact of your programs, or what types of scholarly programs or products have you developed? Do you have peer-reviewed work that you could share? Have you presented, been a part of a conference in your program area on the regional or national scene? So this should give you some very tangible things to work towards. And if you look at those progress towards promotion forms over time, they should give you great guidance towards developing an awesome promotion file. Now, once in a while, and I'll just be very upfront, once in a while, someone in that process doesn't get it right, all right? It could be the administrator, it could be the committee. But no, to me, that's kind of just a glitch on the screen. I would look at the trend lines, the bigger picture, the commonalities in those comments, and that's really what you should be looking for as far as guidance in those documents. And then as you ask others to review your file, think about having both colleagues within and outside of your program area review your file. It's really important for those outside of your discipline to review your file, because typically on a promotion committee, there may only be one or two educators on that committee that are in your program area, and the rest of them work in very different areas. So if you're using jargon, acronyms, things that they're not familiar with, you can just imagine how that's going to go right over their head, and they're not going to understand what you're trying to communicate. So this is an opportunity to ask some of those folks outside of your discipline to give you feedback on the readability and understandability of your file. Some more good comments here. Alice says, bullets, bolding, help highlight points versus writing several long paragraphs. You might also include graphs, charts, tables, photos, if they help explain programs and highlight main points. And I absolutely agree, Alice, and I think you make a great point in that paragraph, and that is, if they contribute, if they add to the communication. If it's just a lot of photos, but we're really not sure why they're in the file, not so important. But make sure that everything in that file, whether it's text or images or links to electronic products and programs, is meaningful. Let's see. We also have Jenny says, I feel it's easier to edit out and focus a document with too much rather than trying to add high quality focused impact data to a blank document at the last minute. So she's saying maybe if in doubt, include it early on as you're going into the review process, and that your reviewers help you decide that maybe what you can call out of that file, what you can, or maybe there's some things that are more important than what you have in the file that they might advise you on. And then just a few details here regarding planning towards success, and that is just some very simple things, but so important. So important in the way that your file is presented and represents you with those looking it over. And again, some of your reviewers will be really good at this and not so good at content review, and vice versa. So as you ask others to review your file, be very specific about what you want them to look for. It's not a casual read, but I want you to do a strong critique of my file. Look at everything from spelling to format to content. So a few pitfalls. The first one is, it's like other things. If you don't apply, there's zero chance of promotion. So failure to apply. It's always sad when folks say, well, I wasn't sure about the process or if I would be promoted, so I've just been kind of waiting. I haven't done it. And sometimes it's 2 or 3 years down the road, and actually promotion would have happened earlier if they would have taken that initiative. Obviously, if you lack the content, the impact, the behavior change verification, it's going to be hard to be promoted. And not asking for others to review the file. We've talked about that already. Also think about this sustained excellence again. Like, the year before you go up from a promotion might not be the year to sunset maybe a lot of programs, to bow out of some partnerships, to decide not to pursue external funding, to not do something new and innovative in your work. That might not be the year to do that. And obviously the committee would be looking at this trajectory over time to see if there's a nice, strong trajectory rather than a kind of a roller coaster approach to your work. Not having those great examples and evidence of leadership, innovation, and scholarly work. Think about the evidence. Think about how you're going to sell yourself in this document. We just mentioned this, starting early on the file, making sure everything's on time according to the required deadlines is really, really important. And then know that, and this is a misnomer in some cases, that time and rank does not alone justify promotion. So obviously, this sustainability over time is important, but just being in your current rank for 5 or 6 or 7 years doesn't mean that a promotion will automatically happen. The performance part of this is just as strong or stronger than time and rank when it comes to these decisions. And then finally, resources. And when I send this file out, you'll have the hot links to where these are located. But a lot of official information online. And again, some of this isn't completely consistent. So that's something I'll be working on with promotion committees this calendar year. So it doesn't mean you can't start on your file. Start running towards a process, working on it. The deadlines that we need to work on and bring consistency to are more this fall and winter than they are right now. So you can start today on your file. That's don't hesitate there. And then I think we've talked about the rest of these resources and how they relate back to your success. So Jenny said, promotion committee members are always willing to help folks who ask and have tremendous ability to provide substantial guidance. And I absolutely agree, Jenny. Sometimes there's a hesitation to approach the promotion committee. Sometimes, I know a lot of cases, not only are we wondering who the chair of the committee is, but who are the committee members, and we need to make sure that information is out there too. So that's another thing I have on my to-do list. so that you know who those individuals are. And you can visit with them if that makes sense to you. So do we have any final questions? I know I went a little over time. I apologize for that. I'm going to wait just a few minutes to see if there are any comments or questions. I'd be interested in both. And I'll also offer up before we part here that I'd be very happy to visit with anyone considering promotion. I'm not your unit administrator, I'm not your promotion committee, but if I can help you in any way navigate the process, I'm very happy to do that. I would also just make this note, and that is that as you visit with your unit administrator, your promotion committee, your mentor about going up for promotion, this is a fine line. It's very, the question that you're probably wondering is, do I have a strong enough file to be promoted? And you're looking for an answer from those you're confiding in. And from those of you offering the advice, obviously we can make no promises. For example, if you visit with me, I have no vote in the process as far as from the committee or the unit administrator perspective. So you want to know, if you're encouraged to go for promotion, that there's a good possibility that you could be promoted, but there's no guarantee, right? So it's encouragement to pursue it. Maybe we think you're pretty close to being at that level of performance over time to be promoted, but ultimately those decisions are made collectively by a group of people. So I know there's a difference between encouragement and confirmation that your file will go forward and be promoted. And Wayne, no, there's no secret handshake to learn after being promoted. Nothing like that at all. So, hey, I appreciate all the great comments, those who contribute to the conversation today. I'll be sending out the recording and the PowerPoint presentation for you to review. And I'll also be in touch with promotion committee chairs here in the near future to talk through some of these items to bring more consistency to the process statewide. So thank you for being with us today. Good luck with your promotion process and quest, and be in touch if I can be of further assistance.